Hey guys, Jordan and Dee here for Hashtag Survival, and today we are talking about mechanics for episode 11. And I was just going to say it's mechanically complex. I can't even speak today. It's one of those
We're
days.
off to a great start.
So when you say survival game, the general umbrella of survival, which is, as we know, every game where you try not to die, including World of Warcraft and Super Mario, what mechanics would you say you expect?
So for me specifically, my sort of understanding and perspective of that topic has changed over time since playing games with you and such. Because when I've talked about it before, I believe my first real introduction to survival games was things like Minecraft, Ark, and Conan Exiles, stuff like that, which, like, yeah, you can make the argument that they are survival games at their core, but they sort of more fit into what we've discussed before as survival light. And I think I've sort of picked up on that and agree with that these days because they, regarding their mechanics, they're pretty simple. Like, I used to think any game that had food and water as a thing you needed, that was mind-blowing, and that works. That's survival, right? That makes sense.
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree. It's good that I can prejudice you against. I used to be more accommodating and accepting of other survival titles, and then I met you. I met you in your games, and then I was like, no.
It isn't so much the idea that I don't think those are survival games anymore, that they're bad games. I think they're fine. They're still fun. I can still go back to Conan and play it and enjoy it, but I'm enjoying it more for just the combat and the leveling and the building and that sort of stuff, the progression, and less for the survival elements. You know, for me now, a game, in order to fit this sort of strict survival game genre or whatever you want to call it, I think it has to have upkeep that is more complicated than just, I have to regain these lost hit points, whether that's by, downing potions or shoving 8 stacks of food into your mouth at once. I think it needs to be more complex than that. I think that whereas the idea of having to eat and drink water and sort of manage that kind of very basic things that used to be a big deal to me, it's kind of not anymore. Like, I kind of feel like if you just throw having to eat and having to drink into your game and just call it a day, like that doesn't even count really anymore. Like, it feels like the most basic thing, right, that you can do, and it's so easy to just throw in but sort of not pay any mind to. And I think that actually annoys me more is when a mechanic is sort of thrown in just to be there, and it's like barely noticeable, and you don't really have to pay much attention to it. If it's not part of the gameplay loop, then, and it's just something that you just have to throw in, you just have to tack on, like, you're doing something that is part of the gameplay loop, and then then you remember, oh right, I should drink a gallon of water so that I'm good for a while. That kind of, it sort of bothers me more when that's there, because it's like, it's very pointless, and it just sort of, like, why is it there if it's just an added on thought, Yeah,
I mean, I feel like it's getting a little more common in some games, and some games handle it a little differently. Like, it wasn't necessarily that you had to, say in Valheim, chug food, for example. You had a base amount of HP. It's not like it dropped if you didn't eat, but you were really using the food as like that temporary buff to layer things on. And so it felt like a weird incarnation of something like WoW, where like you're layering on this gear and you're layering on buffs to raise your HP, to raise your stats. And then if you were to strip all those things away, then you would just be like this naked, low HP, low performing toon. And I feel like in a lot of games where they just put in that one superficial thing where it's like, and you have to eat and drink, but then it ends up being something that, even if it's not very common or it's not very like frequent, it's just that one dimensional thing. It ends up feeling like if you had to just continuously chug like health potions in WoW, like, why am I doing this? This is not doing anything. One thing that goes in terms of having to do the food and water dance in a lot of games where it is more complex is, like you said, it is more involved. I'm looking for water. I'm boiling the water, I'm finding ways to transport it safely. I'm finding ways to use it to engage with my crops and things. I'm finding ways to find the food or process the food or store the food, or the food is going bad. Like it is definitely a lot different than just go out, AoE down a bunch of, deer or whatever, buffalo, grab this entire giant pile of meat, cook it on the fire, throw it in a storage chest, and then it can sit there until the end of time. And then I just pop one in my mouth when I need like a buff or extra HP or to quote unquote like fill my food bar. Like that kind of one-dimensional, gameplay this is in terms of food and water, one of the more common survival mechanics, but it does make it feel very, like you said, tacked on. Like, okay, yeah. I put on food and water and I put on a build, and you can't get killed by the bad thing. So this carry the two. Oh, survival game.
It's a survival game. I've done it.
Survival simulation.
I think one-dimensional is a good term, is a good word that I kind of was dancing around but couldn't quite find, because that's what it feels like, when there's no real interaction with the mechanic, right? Survival mechanics like 7 days to die. It the survival mechanics in that are there, but it's more about the dealing with the horrors of zombies and such. But even in that game, like if you aren't paying attention to your food and water, it's still like you still feel it, right? Because your stamina suffers. You stop generating health, and you don't have your full health. Like your max health is cut while you're not full on food or water. So like you still feel it, so it's not just sort of tacked on. And I think to me, like that's what I want out of my mechanics in a survival game. I want it to feel like it makes sense and like it affects you.
Yeah, and I mean, 7 Days to Die is definitely one where the survival aspects are very limited in scope. Kind of like The Forest, where you were chugging it in, but at least there was a little bit of, you had to cook the food, you had to go ahead and make sure you're finding things. There was a lot of, were they candy? No, bags of chips and candy bars, or just bags of chips?
There was candy bars. There was some sort of, maybe it was bags of chips, but there was, you were kind of like always drowning in candy bars and bags of chips or whatever it was.
Yeah, and I mean, The Forest would kind of be, the Forest for me was really like quote unquote light on the survival, where it was just very kind of, again, they kind of added in these aspects to make it a little quote unquote survival-y in addition to the surviving of the survival horror, which judging by what they're talking about with like food scarcity and seasons and all that for Forest 2, Sons of the Forest, I think that's going to be remedied in the future. But obviously, until we get our hands on that in October, it's hard to say. Beyond food, they have a hard time with putting in any other mechanic that could be something you can balance, which to go the completely other direction in terms of mechanically complex, I think it's also funny when they do that level of complexity and then they put it in a game where you're kind of wondering like who has time to do it. Like Tarkov had a lot of not survival, but like complexity, like bandaging things or getting damaged in certain limbs and having it drop and stuff. And so you saw that with that. And then with Scum, you actually have like full on fucking survival mechanics in Scum. And now they're doing the wounds and infection and sepsis and like being in the heat and you dehydrate and you're sweating it away and you're losing weight. And then it's just like, but it's also a PvP game. Like, when do you have the time to juggle this? I mean, DayZ is very light and compared to Scum. DayZ is definitely lighter. But I mean, on some of these public servers in DayZ, we would just be like, spawn dead, don't have to worry about water.
Yeah, I guess I don't have to worry about the fact that I was starving anymore.
Or had a cold, because nothing cures the cold like death. Literally nothing else in that game kills the cold, except for death. Sometimes.
Yeah, pretty much. It's just pretty much eternal having a cold until you die and respawn. And then you're maybe cold free for a couple minutes before you catch it again.
Yeah, but that's what I mean is it's kind of interesting. It's like some of them do a nod to having any kind of like mechanic, and then some of them go down into the abyss, and then some of them are kind of in the middle. They're like food, water, and then in case they're like a multiplayer game, sometimes it'll have something extra because maybe sometimes you can't do that whole like time passing joint. So they might go for something else like oxygen or sanity. Green Hell, Sanity, that's kind of interesting.
Yeah, I was gonna bring up, I actually really like when games put in a sanity tracker, a sanity meter, or whatever you want to call it. I like when you have to sort of balance sanity. Again, though, as long as it's done with care and not just sort of tacked on. I really liked in Green Hell how your sanity could suffer if you did certain things, and if you let it get too low, you started hearing shit. And the first time that happened to me, like, I was freaked out. I was like, what is this? This is horrible. But it was also, like, super cool, because it's a thing that you kind of don't think about, I feel like, is how if you were in a situation like this in real life, yeah, your sanity would probably be suffering. You'd probably be having some trouble. So it's an interesting mechanic to throw in and to have to kind of balance. And you can make it, again, you can make it either simple, which I mean, I wouldn't, it's kind of lame when you do that, or you can make it a more or complicated thing and weave it in with the rest of the mechanics and the way the story is going and how the gameplay works and such. And I really like when that's done well.
Yeah, Northern Lights has a sanity similar to Green Hill, except it seems to kick in more often, and it actually got so annoying that I think I turned down the in-game sound so I didn't have to deal with it. It was just not, I don't know.
I think I remember watching you play. I don't remember if it was a demo or if it was the full game. You were playing it one time and you were just hearing voices like every few seconds. There was no real break and you just kind of started ignoring it because it was just constant. And yeah, that's not good. You don't want that. You want it to be startling, I feel like.
But I think there's a degree of moderation that's required with them, and that's why it's like people expect it to have food and water when it's survival. But then anytime that the developer is like, oh, we're going to do, like carbs and fats, or we're going to do like different types of food, or we're going to do vegetables and meat or protein, or like anytime they try to add any kind of nuance to it, people lose their shit. And it's like they want some, like, I don't know. It's like they want it to be complex and they want it to not be something where you feel like the tank is always empty, where people are always complaining, oh, I could, if I killed a deer, I'd get this many pounds of meat and it would last me this much. And if I ate 17 steaks, and if I ate one steak, it would last me 3 hours. And if I sprinted for 17 hours, like, it's always so weird because it's like they want to do the math sometimes to prove a point, and then the other times they want to complain that something is too intricate, and there's no middle ground to it. Like, I would rather be team super intricate, more like Scum is going, because there's a lot of it that isn't quite implemented, but I would far rather do that than have it just be like, oh, well, I ate a steak today, so now I'm good until tomorrow, and I can sprint forever. I can jump 18 feet even though I'm wearing 72 pounds of gear on my back.
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree with you. I never thought that I would say that I would say, yes, I agree with you. I want my game to be ridiculously complex.
Hey, now, don't qualify that. That was like, I never thought I would say that I would agree with you.
Well, yeah, I guess full stop there. No, I never thought that I would prefer a more complex system over a more simple system, because that's not really the way I am when it comes to my games for the most part. But like, I agree with you 100% here. Like, I would much rather have a system like Scum, or even Subsistence has a more complex system in the fact that it separates meat and vegetables, which I think it's the only game other than Scum that does that, that we've played at least. But I would much rather have a system like that than just like you said, you stuff one steak in your mouth and then you're good. Or like, oh, I found an egg, let me just stuff that in my mouth. All right, I'm good for a while. I would much rather have the complexity of Scum with the different foods and the different vitamins and the carbs and the fats or whatever. I'll take that any day over that.
Yeah, I like when there is some detail to things where you can look at it and be like, you're going to get more energy or whatever out of this bear steak than this egg or this snail or whatever the case may be. Now, I know people like to immediately either be in praise of the way Green Hill did it or against it. At the end of the day, too, like, I never found it hard to, number one, do anything with the food there, even on the King of the Jungle setting, because there was just so much fucking food. And also, I never really felt, restricted by trying to balance the different types, the protein, carbs, and whatever. It was never really bothersome. It was so easy just to grab shit and just keep them balanced. I mean, there were fucking bananas and coconuts everywhere. There were fruits everywhere, and it was just not a problem. So I like the direction Scum is going. I don't know that I've noticed, obviously there is a bit to do with it with your weight and everything, but I don't know in Scum that I've really noticed.
It's certainly implemented, because there's definitely some foods that give you, I've definitely noticed on my character sheet, like there's times when I have like very low in one vitamin, then I eat something and it goes up. I don't know that I've noticed exactly how that affects you, but I don't know if that's a matter of it not being fully implemented or me just not recognizing it, because there's just so much in Scum that goes into the way your character can function that it is kind of hard to narrow down, like, oh, the reason I'm running out of stamina so fast is because I don't have enough vitamin B or whatever. It's hard because you don't know if it's that, if it's your weight, if it's your strength stat is too low or something. It's hard because there's just so much going in. It's really difficult to pinpoint whether, how much these certain vitamins and stuff affect you and how.
I think it's one of those things where I can believe, just based on what they're doing recently, it's going to end up being one of those things that it's going to influence future stuff. Like I can see like scurvy, for low vitamin C or just different things. I know they had said with the sepsis, it would be something, or the infection, based on like your immune system and how healthy you were. And so I think it's something that's going to really start to influence it later on. But I think, and I can't remember off the top of my head because there are so many, but I only feel like there was maybe one or two like vitamins or minerals that I would usually see in the red, but I never noticed difference. I think it's kind of like min-maxing in WoW. Like unless you play at that 1%, then you don't notice that you're not like ideally gemmed and geared and stuff. And I feel like it's that, like, I'm not doing running around in PvP and really trying to like crank my tune into whatever. So I don't notice the slight bits of, I don't know, difference. Unless I'm overloaded, and then I should go, try to walk in the water and then I'm shocked when I drown.
And then just sink to the bottom. Yeah, that was fun times. We may or may not have done that like 3 times before we realized what the problem was.
It's such a weird, not like a weird problem in the sense that you can't be overweighted and do it, but it was so funny coming from literally every other game where you're just like, well, yes, I will walk in the water with my magical wormhole bag. Oh, wait, like 7 days where you can bike.
It just biked, yeah.
bike through the water. And then we're just like, well, this game is so stupid. Why is it so broken? Why do we keep
I swim? So
why
janky.
Swimming no work? Crappy game.
That was an experience. And, now that we recognize that that's what happened, we're like, yeah, of course, that makes perfect sense. But it's like you said, like no other game we played took that into account before. So it hit us completely by surprise, and to the point where we thought it was a bug and didn't even consider that was just the mechanic, is that obviously if you're carrying like 50 pounds of gear and you're wearing like steel-toed boots and a jacket, jeans, you're probably gonna sink. You're gonna have trouble.
It's also hard in games like that where we had come from having a bunch of bugs and issues that just seemed like right on the heels of that, like another bug or issue.
Yeah.
And then we were like, oh god, the game's bugging again. Then we're like, wait a minute.
Yeah, that's true. It comes down, going back to the minerals and such. I think it does sort of come down to min-maxing if you really want to pay very close attention and really balance those things. You don't need to be that specific just to survive, because honestly, for the most part, I'm never really that specific. I don't think you are either, Jordan, when we play Scum. Like, we're not sitting here like, okay, we have some bear meat, we need some more of the minerals from wolf meat, so let's go hunt a wolf instead. No, we're just happy if we found and killed a bear, and we're like, yes, we have 50 bear steaks, we're set for life. I think it's cool that exists as something you can kind of min-max and really get down and dirty with if that is something that appeals to you and something that matters, and maybe it becomes more important in like really tough PvP fights and such, but I like that it's not, you don't have to go fully complicated with it. I'm also very happy that it's not stupid simple into finding the food and preparing the food and then making sure the food doesn't spoil.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of I don't know. I feel like there's a lot of things where, again, because there is no actual on paper description or requirement or whatever you want to call it for the umbrella of survival gaming, I feel like it ends up being one of those things where people just feel like, well, it has A and it has B. So like you have food, you can craft and you can build survival. And Small Land, like I linked to you, I think that thing where the guy had described what Small Land was. And I was like, what does this sound like to you? This totally unknown game that I'm just giving you just one sentence out of context. And you were like, is this an MMO? And I'm like, yeah, well, that's my point.
Yeah. For the benefit of the listeners, he linked me just an excerpt from the dev, didn't tell me who it was or what the game was or anything. Just sort of was like, if I just gave you this, what would you think? And, like Jordan said, I I said it sounded like an MMO, because to me it did. And, that's fine. That's perfectly okay.
Yeah, I think it was just funny because like that interview was so all over the place. Let me tell you how, what were they? Oh, grounded. Let me tell you how grounded is in survival. But also, let me tell you how we are survival. But also, let me basically just tell you, like, let me take a sentence out of, like, if I was describing World of Warcraft. Like, there's time gating and quests, and you have factions, and you have to craft armor, and, because you're not being killed by bugs? That's just, okay, cool. So it's like not being killed by zombies then.
I think maybe for that interview, it may have been just a failure to kind of communicate precisely what they were trying to say. I think they were trying to, tell some of the cool features they had planned and, the quests and stuff. Like, they wanted to show off those features, but they didn't quite answer the question then. Like, they were so eager to show off these other features that are very MMO-like that they didn't get into maybe the other features that they're going to work on or they're going to add that are more survival-like. So it did come off very, like, all over the place because of that.
Yeah, whatever it was, but there's a couple of the upcoming ones where I actually have, oh god, I don't even know, maybe like 80 Discord servers, and I try to process them, and some of them I'm active in, and some of them I'm active in certain channels, and there is like a whole like subfolder of ones that I'm waiting to add because just like they label themselves and they come across my Steam queue or they come across my, I don't know, Reddit feed or whatever the thing is, and they are all like, we're survival this and that and this, and then I don't, I look at it and I'm like, I'm sorry, this looks like World of Warcraft, or this looks like a racing game, or this looks like an RPG. I don't see it, and I just end up tabling them until I can actually understand like what the fuck they're trying to do, because all I end up seeing is like, you can build and craft, ergo. And I'm like, but what? I mean, I do that in ESO too, so what?
Yeah, maybe it's a matter of that some of these survival elements and mechanics that we talk about, maybe they just don't seem sexy, as things to express that are going to be in your game, at least not so much as we're going to have quests and cool AI that you can interact with, and we're going to have a story that you can follow. Like, I suppose that's maybe more intriguing sounding to a wider audience than you have to monitor your calories and your sanity and not go insane.
See, I always talk about how like survival mechanics aren't sexy.
Right.
So it's really hard to be like, are you excited? You're going to have to shit and piss.
You're going to have to deal with getting sick.
Not that many of them do the shitting and pissing thing, but I mean, it is, potentially, like, unless you're ARC, in which case it seems to be like a perk for people, in Scum, until we get toilet paper, you can see how it, although I do carry a lot of things in my prison wallet, so I just want to point out that it's not useful.
Just shitting out bananas and candy bars.
I have offered you prison wallet bananas and candy bars before.
I have turned them down. Dear listeners, I've turned them down.
It's okay. I just put them in the box, sheets them anyway. It's totally fine. But, I can understand how it's not very exciting. But at the same time, like, that level of grit and detail, like, I want to hear about it. Like, tell me about the painstaking inventory. Tell me I can't carry shit until I craft myself a bag. Tell me I'm going to eat a chicken that I plucked and I'm gnawing on that's raw and I'm going to get sick. I can't do the sexy girl voice, but like, oh baby, tell me about these mechanics. Like, this is what I like.
Right.
Like, I'm very into that level of detail and I want to know, to see the visuals and whatever, but it's not what makes it interesting.
Right. And I think, unfortunately, for most people, that it's the opposite. They want to see the pretty screenshots and they want to hear about the way the combat's going to work, what sort of AI they can fight or interact with, or what they can build, what they can craft. And yeah, all of that is cool. And all of that can be important to a survival game as well. But then again, what separates it as survival versus an RPG or an MMO or an adventure game? And that's where these non-sexy elements have to come into play. And these are the mechanics, I think, that we are talking about here. The mechanics that we want and we expect out of a survival game.
I think at the end of the day, they all need to work together to have it be gritty and make it feel like survival. I think when it's anything else, or when it's kind of just like, you could craft, but you could build something, but it doesn't really matter. You could try to eat something, bam, eating deer, whatever. When it's very simplistic and it doesn't feel intricate, then I feel like it ends up being, it makes me just kind of put it more into another category. Crafting and building are two of the things that they end up coming into these mechanic like discussions. And I don't necessarily feel like the way that they do it is what makes it or breaks it. Because, and there's a lot of games where they do like the blueprints or they do the shadow builds. There's a lot of games where they do reinforcing existing structures like survive the night or building, putting down the little blueprints like in Green Hell. And then there's TLD, The Long Dark, where you don't build at all. There's no building in that game. That is like my top choice for a survival game. Like everything about it is just so intricate and lonely, and you just, all the choices and decisions you're making are just so relevant to surviving. And I was almost going to say like maybe like that could be something they could talk about, is like choices and decisions being impactful and stuff. But then I also feel like that kind of makes it sound like a role-playing game. I don't play as many role-playing games as you, so.
Yeah, I mean, that's sort of a big thing that people want out of their RPGs these days as well, is choices that are significant and affect the world and the things around them. That's a thing that is mostly wanted and expected. So yeah, like you're right about that.
Can't really describe it. It's like a certain level of like being specific to your survival. Like, not that you can choose to go and help the person, or not that you can choose to go out in the storm, or not that you can like, yeah, you can make that choice. Like you're controlling the character. It's not like you can't, like the door locks, you can't go out of the cabin at night or whatever. But it's like you're making a choice that is like this very, very specific focus that can get you killed, or that can have repercussions beyond that. Like in 7 days, like how many times is it night? Like the zombies are faster. It's dark, there are more of them, they aggro quicker. And how many times you make that choice to try and go out there and go farm wood or something, knowing that like a dog pack could come, or, you could be set upon by a group and be locked in a thing and then not have food and water and starve. Like, these are things that make it have that level of being intricate, not just that it's an inconvenience. Like, oh, you're over there, you're going to die, whatever, you'll respawn and come back. And yeah, you can do that in 7 days. But it still is like an impactful, even though it's not permadeath, it still has an impact. I can't really explain it better than that.
Yeah, and I don't necessarily think you have to explain it better than that. I think that's a fine way to explain it. If a mechanic just feels like an inconvenience that you just deal with because, whatever, I have to, and it's like a shrug of your shoulders to deal with or to manage, then like that's, why is it even there? It's pointless. I want it to feel like it's impactful. Like if I make the choice to not that food that's at my house and just trek out anyway, I want it to feel like it will have effects if things don't go right. If it's not going to, then what's the point of it being in there?
I think TLD, even though TLD is very simplistic in a lot of ways, there's no building, there's crafting, which can be, I don't want to say intricate, but there is a lot of stuff you can craft. The permadeath paired with just all the restrictions on your weight, and the restrictions on, like if you have a lot of raw meat, like it'll draw the wolves. And if you're in whatever setting, like you don't have certain guns or you don't have certain items, and just those restrictions, like that kind of restriction on there. Like I know everybody wants, games like, oh, I can go and do anything, and I can fly a car, and I could go play Diablo Immortal and have a fucking shit ton of microtransactions and go broke. Like, people want a lot of like freedom, but I think when you give them these restrictions, it makes for such compelling gameplay. Like TLD, there's just like, you have X amount of space and you can craft a bit, and I'm not saying that you can't like tweak that a bit. It's turning towards night, but I really need wood. What should I carry? Should I carry all this extra shit? Should I carry the, all the extra bandages and clothing and a repair kit and this and that in case I get attacked by wolves, or in case I get lost because I'm terrible at directions? Or should I just go with just a knife, an axe and a knife, and just kind of wing it? I'm only going out for wood. I'll be back before nightfall. And, then you get damaged, or you get, run off by a bear and you can't get back. Like, it just gives you so much stuff that you can do. And I just feel like it makes it so alive. And I think that's a problem with a lot of them, is that they end up just feeling very like 1 or 2 dimensional. Like there's not really much to it. Like once you figure out the math to it, then like the mechanics, you figure it out. And a lot of the things where people are like, yeah, every 3 days this animal will spawn here, or every 4 days a tree comes back, or, this spot always has X food, or whatever the case may be. And they figure out that math to it. Like every X hours, I eat this one food, and then I eat this meat because that gives me exactly X point whatever calories, and that'll last me 10 hours of game time. And then I sleep for this amount of time. And I feel like once you do all that shit, then it really just takes away the magic. It's like the magic of Disneyland, right? Like once you know all the shit behind the scenes and the rides and everything like that, it just like, I don't want to learn any of that. Just magic forever.
Yeah. No, I get you. I think that's true of any game though, right? Once it sort of becomes, I think especially for MMOs, I find this happening. once it becomes sort of a routine and you're just sort of following a very set, very strict path every day, you log in, you have to do these dailies, you have to, farm this thing, so you can make that stack of food for the raid. That's every Tuesday. It can start to become mind-numbing and boring and make you wonder, why am I doing this? So that can happen in any game, but I think certainly in a survival game, it can be the death of the game's enjoyment, right? Because you need to have these things to react to, and you need to be able to be feeling that things are affecting you and that things are happening that you need to deal with, that you need to use your brain to kind of overcome, and you have to make these important decisions like, what do I carry on me? Do I go out for food now? Do I risk it and wait? These things, they have to matter, I think, for a survival game to be successful.
Yeah, and I think so often they don't, and then it makes me sad. And I don't know. I feel like there's just a lot of the upcoming games where I'm kind of waiting for the hook. I'm waiting for what's going to make it interesting. And so a lot of people are putting up demos and stuff. And I know, I love me a demo. I like a chance to try things out. Without having to play it and then return it, obviously. But there's a bunch where I'm just kind of like, I've tried them now, and I'm just like, I still think it's great, and I still think it's very pretty. I think people like it and whatever, but I'm very like, yes. Like, now I can see, like, you've been explaining things, but now that I've actually felt it and I've played it, now I'm very much like, okay, yeah, not for me. No, thank you.
We kind of go back a little bit to, we brought up crafting and building. I think in terms of, so it seems like the conclusion we've come to mostly is that we want our mechanics to feel like they matter and like they actually have an effect. And I think that building and crafting can contribute to that. I know that The Long Dark is your favorite and it has no building whatsoever. And I think that's fine. But I think that building mechanics in a survival game can be really good and can be really important because, having shelter is one of the things that you need. That's one of the basic needs humans to survive. In fact, I think, like, when you're young, and for some reason, I don't know if you remember this, like, for a while, when we were kids, like, I was put in the situation where I thought that we were going to be, like, lost in the woods more regularly than it actually happened, because I feel like we would read books about survival and stuff, and, like, they would be like, oh, here's what you have to do, like, if you ever are lost in the wilderness or whatever. And one of those things was, one of the first things you gotta do is you gotta find shelter. You gotta either find or build shelter. That's very important. So I think that, considering its importance for survival, putting a building mechanic in a survival game can be done well. It has to, that's it, right? It has to be done well. It can't just be, all right, I'll press this button and I throw up a log cabin. I throw 2 logs and it's done. It has to feel like, okay, I have to gather the materials. I have to find a good spot. I have to put it all together. I have to make sure I'm keeping up my water and my food because doing this exertion is going to take it out of me. And again, it has to all work together. And I think the same with crafting, right? Because you have to decide, okay, I have this rock and I have this stick. I can make an axe or I can make a knife. What's more important for me to have right now? And you have to make that choice.
And I think that's where a lot of these games end up, I don't want to say stumbling. And I feel like part of it is because with early access games, it's a solo dev. And rather than being able to have like all these things in front of them level and raise them up at the same time, they're having to kind of leap back and forth. Like, I'll raise up this mechanic and then I'll raise up this. And it ends up being that building, I feel like building is one of those things that, like, these early access or tiny devs or survival games, they end up doing a lot with, and then they turn into building simulators. And I know for some of them, it's because, like, there is a lot of complexity in doing AI, doing non-crappy, reactive, fleshed out, fun to interact with or shoot or whatever AI. And I get that. But, a lot of these titles, I feel like they just end up being these building things. And then people ask for more and more, pieces or things. And then all of a sudden it's like, yes, I am simultaneously, alone in the woods and I have nothing and I just made a rock or I just made a knife out of these 2 rocks. But also I have this 18,000 square foot mansion with 20 levels and a hot tub and an air conditioner and in a tree village with walkways. And I don't get And it seems to happen more often than not in survival games, like that building thing.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, there's for sure a place for that as well, and it's a lot of fun, sort of in your downtime, if you have downtime, to be like, okay, I'm going to add another room to my house, and then that's more room for me to have storage or whatever. And it can be fun to sort of try to plan out how it's going to look and the layout and stuff. But I think you're right that some people just want that portion, and they don't really want to deal with the survival portion. And I think that's when things like, a creative mode versus the normal mode come in. And, I think they're okay. I don't think it's a bad thing that some games have them.
No, I mean, I never mind modes. I would rather implement modes if it means that I'll get the mode that I personally want to play, even if you end up having a bunch of modes that I would never play or I think are dumb. Because, hey, then I win too. I don't understand. Like, if you're just like, I'm only going to make this one crappy mode, and then I'm kind of like, well, now I'm sad because now I can't play this game because that mode sucks, but whatever. But, like, there's Interloper for the Long Dark, and then there's like the Pilgrim. And, Becca plays on Pilgrim, and that's fine. I would never do it. I get bored. There's so much fucking loot. You can't, it's just like, I need 18 more bags, carry all this fucking loot. But, I'm fine with it being there. There's passive or build modes on things like the Forest and, Infected and a whole bunch of other games. And I don't mind them. It's just funny because then I feel like, Infected being a good example, that the building outstripped some of the other game, whatever you want to call them, pillars, foundations, like whatever. And then you almost end up like, you put more effort into it, you get more people who like that. You put more effort into it, you get more people who like that. And when you start working on the other aspects, like we see this a lot in Infected, we put in things towards, the devil put in things that hype up or influence the survival aspects. This thing will be harder or this thing will be more punishing or whatever. And then you get a lot of pushback and complaints from the builders because they just want to build. They don't want to be bothered by like mechanics and survival and, things trying to eat you or weather breaking things or getting sick or whatever. They just want to build. And then it's almost like you split the game. like you're splitting the player base. I think TLD was really smart to not put in building. Like, I think that was so smart.
It seems to have worked out for them, because then they just threw in, like you said, the pacifist kind of motives where there's a lot of loot and the animals don't attack you. They didn't have to worry about sort of separating, here's a creative mode where you can just build. They were able to do that where it was just a less complicated, less difficult mode.
Also have like their custom mode is one of the most intricate that I've come across. Like in their custom mode, you can use one of the actual levels as a template. So you can be like, oh, give me the settings of Interloper. And then you can go in and just fine tune so precisely exactly how you want to play. And then you can actually generate a code and send it to your friend. If you want it to be like, hey, we're going to have a contest. You can survive the longest. You can set it up and send them the code. And then you can both play on those settings, which I like.
That's cool.
I think it's really cool. I haven't found anybody to play that with me, but because Becca wants to play on Pilgrim and Foxy wants to play on Pilgrim and I don't. And I'm like, let's play Interloper. And they're like, let's not do that ever.
That sounds terrible. Let's not do that.
Well, I mean, for them, to be fair, like they joke about it. They both know like they would log in and die. So, and for me in Pilgrim, I would just probably go kill myself. I feel like I'm on day 700 million. I want to be done. I can't do this anymore. But I think there's some where, in some ways, when you can separate it entirely, great. Totally fine with that. Like if you want to go be builder mode and you want to go build and never have to deal with any kind of mechanics or, just have them feed you endless trees and rocks or whatever the fuck, like great. That's never going to impact me. So the fuck do I care? I don't like if it dumbs down or simplifies like the actual main or only game mode, whatever you want to call it. Like that's when it starts to become more of a problem, I guess you could say. And at least for games that I'm aware of now, I'm trying to think if there's any upcoming. Now I feel like the upcoming one talked about, like the ones I'm thinking of, I've talked about having like very clear paths or having a builder mode. But like for games like Scum and DayZ, or at the very least DayZ, like you play DayZ, like that's it. Like that's the settings you're playing on, unless you're on a custom server.
Yeah, the food spawns in the world, like the zombies wouldn't drop food, and you couldn't get, I think the like mushrooms or fruit off the trees. So it was a little harder. You weren't quite drowning in food. Yeah,
Green Hell is very similar to TLD. Like the way they put in those like little custom settings, it's very, very finite. Like you're on this setting, this is what happens. You're on this setting, this is what happens to the animals. This is what happens to the food. This is what happens to how quickly your stats degrade. It's very, very like, this is what it is. And I like that. I think that's really neat. And then there's some where they go a little more light on it. Like in Subsistence, what is it? You can have your length of the year and if the hunters are on and off, which is fine. You know, I think Stranded Deep had that too. Or it's like, but it's easy, hard, and whatever. I feel like it ends up being some kind of difficulty like that for a lot of these games. I'm actually looking through my Steam library because I'm just like, what other games do that kind of setup? Survive the Nights is one where you're not really looking towards, like, there is survival, and God, Survive the Nights has the best food. Like, doing that stew,
oh man,
is so cool.
Yeah, I want to take a moment to step away from what we are talking about to plead with survival game developers. Please add more cooking and fishing mechanics to your games, and please make them good. Please don't give me what like Scum currently has, where it's like, okay, put the meat by the fire and hope that it works. I love cooking and fishing games. I love the mechanics. I love when they have like little mini games, which is funny because when I was younger, I absolutely hated them because I was like, oh, this is so boring. No, now I love them. Give me a good cooking and fishing mechanic and I will love your game.
Survive the Nights is just like, there's some stuff I want to tweak. Like, there is way too much loot. Like, way too much loot.
There is a lot, yeah.
Way too much food loot, too, weirdly. But, like, that, building the fire, building the grating, putting the pot down, like that, being able to interact with things and put them down and rotate them and just, like, decorate your thing, even though you can't base build. But you can, fortify house, make those kind of things. Mm-hmm. Like, yeah. That is so cool. And it's funny because it's kind of like, it's the completely opposite direction of 7 Days to Die, right? Because like in 7 Days to Die, you could just make and break and fucking build and whatever, anything. But,
yeah, anything.
Yeah, but for some reason, just the menace and like the feeling of the horde and Survive the Nights and the feeling of menace and the way they come and how creepy they are is so much more for me in Survive the Nights than in 7 Days. Like in 7 Days, it's really just the jump scares, the fucking jump scares that give me apparently a heart complex. Like,
yeah, you heard it here, folks. 7 Days to Die gave Jordan a heart complex.
Like, this is where I'm having my heart problems lately. It's probably that game. Because I can't take it. I'm too much of a baby, which means that probably Sons of the Forest will probably kill me.
Oh God, yeah, that's yeah.
Going to play it in the daytime with my door locked, so Becca can't come up behind me and scare me.
All the lights on,
with the sound off, with the lights on,
brightness turned fully up.
Yep, with me, going into every cave and opening and door or whatever first. With you on live screen so I can see what you're seeing so that I can be like, I can have my jump scare before I actually get jump scared.
There you go. It's going to be a process, but we'll make it work.
I have a list. But you know, there's some where it's just not. Like, the shit in Scum. The puppets are more annoying. I feel like we go into town, we hop in a window, we fire a gun, and then they come and we just bludgeon them to death.
Yeah, they can get you if you're not prepared and you get swarmed, but like you said, like most of the time we sort of just, you're able to hide. They can't get into the buildings. They don't attack the doors. They can't climb in the windows. So you get in a building and you're pretty much safe. And then you can either melee them down one by one slowly or just shoot them all and you're done. So you can easily sort of work around them. And I think the same is true of 7 Days. Right? Like, yeah, you can get swarmed easily, and if you're in a bad spot, then you're screwed. But we figured out, like, what the good places to use as bases are, and where we can be almost completely safe, even during Horde nights, where we don't ever really have to worry about dying, as long as we are smart and not like me and jump down into the middle of them to collect loot. But you can't really do that and Survive the Nights. Like, they can break down the door, they can climb through the windows, and you can fortify these things, but they can still break them down. Like, you can never make anything completely foolproof. Like, they're gonna get it.
They knock first.
Oh yes, they knock because they're polite zombies.
It's like an etiquette thing.
Yeah, of course.
It's funny that they do that.
Yeah, they have to politely tell you that they're about to come in and eat your face.
But you know what? I mean, that's still the thing. Like, it's still the most terrifying/menacing thing for me. And even though they knock, which is kind of funny, but like when they literally break the glass and then they hook their arms over and climb in like that, and especially it's dark and all you can see is a silhouette, that shit's terrifying. But then when the next one comes, it's like, and they open the door. That's funny.
Yeah.
I'm still crying in the corner, like scared, but it's funny scared.
Yeah, exactly. It's a little bit of laughter before you get murdered.
All things in moderation. But there's a bunch of them where it's just, there's certain mechanics. Like if I could just pick out, like, let me see. I can go about this. Okay. So I would take the building of 7 Days to Die. I don't mind it. I think it's funny. Like if I had a building mode in a game that was like 7 Days to Die building, where you could just be stupid and build pits and put spikes in it and like just do all that kind of like the painting thing, the paintbrush.
Yeah.
To make things look nice. Like that's pretty cool. I will take that. That would be like in a little mode for me. DayZ, I like the gritty look to it.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's just got that, I don't know.
It does look very cobbled together, like, like it would be if you're in the middle of a zombie apocalypse and you just have to use the materials you find and what sort of crappy tools you got. It looks like a building would look in that situation. But I think same with Scum, really.
In DayZ, it's just like, as far as the game, like overall, like DayZ just hits that grittiness really well.
It does.
Like
yeah.
You got all the little like random bits of clothing. You're wearing a fucking jester's hat. You got a metal pipe. You're wearing a school backpack. You're carrying around like a fucking loaf of bread and for some reason, giant box of cereal. I don't understand the sizing. I've not seen boxes of cereal that are this big. But, everything about it is just very like, it's constantly gray in Livonia. It's raining. It's just very gritty. You're sick. You're sneezing. I really like so much of it. I don't like getting shot from hackers when I'm, in a fucking locked room laying on the ground and I fucking get killed by a gunshot. Like that is less fun to me.
Yeah.
No. But like if I would take that out of DayZ. Let me see, I'm going down the list. The forest, I would take the AI. The complexity of the AI in the forest, that was great.
God, yeah.
Throw away all the survival features because they were shitty. The map was very tiny, so I don't really need that. I don't need that tarp. I was really not a fan of the tarp.
The magic tarp. Yeah, the magic wormhole tarp.
Yeah. I mean, I'll take the fire arrows. Those were really fun.
Yes, the fire arrows were great.
And I think that's really the only thing I would take from there. Green Hell, the building, the look of the environment wasn't bad. I'm really not a fan of this whole, like, let's have everything on the watch that everybody does. Like, I understand why they're doing it, but I don't know.
I would take from Green Hell the way you handle certain injuries, like the leeches and stuff. I would take that system because I always thought that was unique and cool. How it wasn't just, let me just take this leaf and wrap it around as a bandage and I'm done. That fixes everything. I like that there were different solutions to different things.
Green Hell did phenomenal with that. And it wasn't, I'm going to make antibiotics like 7 days. Yeah, like in Scum or like in 7 days where you're just ripping up bandages and somehow this is all you need. Like a wolf bit me, but this piece of cloth will fix it.
I'm all better now.
I just wrapped this around, even though I almost died from this bear mauling. This piece of cloth, this is a really good quality. It's organic cloth. It really, it works really well for these things. I mean, using the ants in Green Hell was cool. Using the different types of bandages, all that stuff was great. I would definitely take all that.
Yeah,
from Icarus, I would take having your house burned down.
Yeah, no, actually, as like horrifying as it is, I think it was cool because it forced you to have to pay attention and be ready. Even if you weren't even safe in your house because your house might catch fire and you got to deal with that. So I think that was good.
I also like carrying the animals.
Yes,
it's not a mechanic. It's just like a little flavor thing, but it's kind of cool to actually just pick it up and be like, I will bring this in the house and I will process it in the house.
Yeah.
Not just be like, let me cut up this bear and then put it in my pocket. Scum also does okay with that. Like, I'm okay with cutting it up into the giant pieces.
Yeah.
Like, that's not bad. Let me see. Icarus. I will take nothing from Last Oasis because that was garbage right now. The Long Dark. I mean, I love the inventory and stuff. It's not a bag system. I'm much more a fan of like Green Hell style bag system, but I like the solitude of the Long Dark. Like everything just felt and nothing was really unrealistic. You weren't suddenly like making air conditioners and building 10-foot tall things and fighting 18 zombies with your machine gun. And everything was just very like, you can carry 20 pounds of gear. You have 30 pounds of shit. Make a decision.
Decide. Yep.
Yeah. Make a choice. That's all you got. Myth Survival, I haven't played that much to really make a decision. Northern Lights was very, very similar to Green Hell. Remnants is very similar to like DayZ and Scum, so those aren't very useful. Rust can go burn in a fire. Stranded Deep, like, I like radial wheels, but you completely fuck that.
Yeah. No thanks to that radial wheel.
I don't know. Also, like, why do I have to make boxes to put 3 items in or 6 items in and then carry
But then that's
18
okay.
boxes?
Yeah, you have 18 boxes in your radial wheel pocket.
But it was just like, let me remember what box I have shit in. Let me dump them all on the ground. Let me pick them all back up and put them back in my business casual fucking Dockers. Oh, by the way, there's like a fucking, a scuba tank in there and like a spear gun and
some scrap metal.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Not just like pieces of like actual big fucking huge 2x4s and scrap metal are in a box, which is in my Dockers.
Nope.
This is totally legit.
That was something.
Will be nice. I'll take sunburn.
Yeah, no, the sunburn was cool. The first time that happened to me, I was like, what the hell? Like, I wasn't expecting it, but it makes perfect sense.
Yeah. I'll take sunburn. You can keep the fucking pigs.
Yeah, no thanks on the pigs. No thanks.
I'll take the giant crabs. I'll take one giant crab as a pet.
Yes, I can agree with that.
Like, it can just hang out in whatever my game is. Subsistence, if I could just pick up the mechanics of subsistence and put it down in a game that looks better and then put in better AI.
Yeah.
Because, like, the seasons, like, they did the seasons so good.
The weather and the seasons are fantastic in that game.
So good. Like, I don't even... but the AI, the animals are so bad. Like, let's not even go into the hunters, which all apparently are, like, fucking, I don't know, Navy SEAL fucking Ranger, Sniper, whatever the fuck they are.
They all have a butt.
They're ridiculous. But the wolves and the fucking bears are so bad. And for anyone listening who has a problem with avoiding them, I'm sorry, I don't understand why you have a problem with this. Like,
readers, I have a problem with this, so it's okay.
Dee's bad at this game.
I'm very bad.
Dee's like, and I'm dead. And I'm dead. And I'm like, what the fuck? I've been dragging 18 wolves and also picking up fiber. Like a diligent little survivalist. That was
I've run into the wolves.
Rough playing on the 2-man on the whatever the hard mode thing is.
That was quite difficult.
Was not aware that it killed me every time he died.
That was, yeah.
I'm like, man, I've got so much shit, man, we're dead. And now I've got so much nails and we're dead again. Cool. I'm just going to sit here and not move until she's safe. And then I will go out and pick things up. Then I'll be able to, nope, we're dead again.
That didn't work either. Then we starved to death on our one foundation house.
I really like Survivalist Invisible Strain. It's a game I have to review for the website, but I've been having a lot of fun on that game. I die like every fucking 5 seconds. Every death is really fun, but I'll go into more of that next time. But if you haven't tried it, try Survival Fountain of Youth. It reminds me mechanically like Green Hell, but tuned harder in the normal mode. Like, it's actually the first mechanically complex game that has come out in a bit, but it's good.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I have yet to try it out.
It's very good. I'm very pleased with it. I'm interested in see exactly like what they plan on doing as they move forward. Like, it's got little elements almost of like TLD. It's got like surveying and it's just very interesting. The animals, the AI, the animals, that's definitely a weak point. Like super aggressive birds and then some weird, like, I don't know, dog, beaver, something thing. I forgot what it is. But overall, it's really solid game. And the fact that it's, not an 18-year, 1,000 month fucking alpha, like 7 days to die. It's so nice. I'm pretty pleased with it. Humanity is another one that is pretty interesting mechanics wise. Although I'm having a problem navigating because of the top down kind of weird camera view they do. Like it's very hard for me. I'm not good at that viewpoint.
I think I'm getting used to, I imagine, because it's not really a common viewpoint that's used in games.
Like, it's not the top down that's difficult. It's I just feel like I want to move the camera with the right mouse button. I feel like, was that a Diablo thing or
moving the camera?
Yeah, there was some game I was playing top down where I expected it to move the camera in a certain way and it did. And I haven't played Diablo in a while, so I can't remember if it was Diablo.
No, Diablo, you can't move the camera. It follows you, it centers you, and you just follows you.
I don't remember what game it was. It might have been Above Snakes, but in this game, in Humanity, you can only rotate the camera with Q and E, and it also like kind of hitches when you do it, and your tune will turn whichever way your mouse is. So pretty much whenever I was trying to record footage, I was just constantly like running backwards for like acres at a time.
Jordan was walking. It was a very important part of the survival.
It really looks kind of dumb. And I keep trying to like turn around and do it. And I don't know. I think apparently I move my mouse around a lot when I'm trying to do things. So I'm constantly like going different directions and yeah. But it is really fun. It's kind of like a top-down survive the night meets 7 days, maybe. I'm pretty pleased with it,
Yeah, I'm definitely intending to try that one. I'm gonna give it a shot on my Steam Deck. Seems like a game that would play well on it.
Yeah, and they plan to have 4-player co-op. So, like I was saying, I think that'll be a good game for us.
Yeah,
when we're done murdering things on Sundays, and when we're done getting killed by the new AI on Scum, whenever that comes out in 100 years. But yeah, survival game mechanics. Put them in.
Put them in. Make them matter. Make them feel like they matter.
Make them matter. Matter yourselves by making them matter. Stay safe.
Bye.